Hello, everyone, and welcome to Candid Conversations with Rennu Dhillon. I'm Rennu Dhillon. Series 2 is called You Could Be Next. And in this series, we will be talking to guests who will be sharing their life adversities with us and how they're overcoming or have overcome them. By listening to real life stories and these experiences, not only will you be able to appreciate your life, but possibly you can learn a little bit more about how you would have to face these tribulations if they were to hit you. As we all know, life is full of surprises, and those surprises are not always pleasant. So if you have something to share, you have a trauma that you've gone through, or an experience that you know others would benefit from by listening to you and how you've overcome it, please give me a call at the number on the screen, which is 510-364-4033, or you could email buildingwomenempowered@gmail.com. Today's guest is a young couple that has gone through a tragedy that none of us would ever want to experience, and that is the loss of their young child. Sandeep and Misha will be sharing with us their journey when they lost their beautiful son Neev to a very rare disorder, and what are they doing to help overcome not only their grief, but help other parents who could be possibly faced with the same tribulation. Let's begin the show. Well, Sandeep and Misha, welcome to Candid Conversations with Rennu Dhillon. It's a pleasure having you on the show. I know under the circumstances, it's what we're going to talk about is going to be very sad, but I really appreciate you coming on and being able to share this very traumatic experience with all of us.
Thank you for having us.
No, it's a pleasure. So, the Candid Conversation is basically a show, series 2. I've named it You Could Be Next because I feel that, a lot of us take life for granted and we never know what tribulations are going to hit us and what adversity we're going to have to face. And you just never know what's going to happen the next second of your life. And I think what both of you have gone through is something that no one ever imagines at all. So a little introduction I did before I brought you on the show is we talked about how you recently lost your beautiful son, Neev, and you're here to talk about what happened because it was a very rare disorder, and also what have you done and what are you doing going forth. So let's begin first by telling us a little bit about Neev. I mean, when he was born, so I'll start this question with mommy, always biased towards mommy. He was born, was he a healthy baby? Everything was going okay? I mean, tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, so he was the healthiest baby there was. He was healthier than my first one. I had a very easy pregnancy with my first one, and my first one was very colicky, and he did not sleep through the night. It was completely opposite with Neev. Neev was such an easy baby. It was phenomenal how easy, and he was always happy. I don't remember him as a baby crying a lot. So he must have gotten 1 or 2 fevers, but that's it. He didn't have any. He was very careful. He never fell down. He didn't have broken bones. None of those things. He was a very careful, fun-loving, full of life child.
So, what happened? What was this first day where you were just your whole world was turned around? What happened? I'll pose that question to Sandeep. What happened, Sandeep?
So, a couple of weeks before the diagnosis, we started noticing that Neev was having some issue with his eyes. So he would start looking like that. And we just thought he was goofing around and he had some redness in his eyes. So we took him to a pediatric ophthalmologist.
How old was he then? Was he
4? He was 4.5.
Okay.
And I noticed a week or so before, I noticed that he was falling from his bike when he was riding. He didn't have balance. He was losing his balance and he was falling. And just the previous week, the training wheels had come off, and I thought it was because of that. I remember even scolding him that why can't you balance yourself? And he's like, I'm trying, Dada. And now when I think of that moment, I always curse myself. I have a regret. I didn't know at the time, but it was the tumor that was acting. And the Saturday morning, it was August 15th, 2020. It's India's Independence Day. And in the morning, I was standing with him near a sink, and he just not standing straight. He was just, losing his balance. So I realized that, and I called Misha, and I was like, this is really odd. And she immediately decided that we have to take him to urgent care. We took him there. They did some tests, and they said, well, the eyes seem to be fine, but you have to take him to Children's Hospital. So we went to Oakland, Children's. We stayed there the entire day. They ran a lot of tests, MRIs and CT scan. And in the evening around 6 p.m., they basically called me in. And this was during COVID. So I was outside and Misha was with him. And they took us to a room, and there was a social worker and there was 6 other people. So I kind of found it strange, and I sensed that there is something really wrong. And they basically told us that he has an inoperable tumor called DIPG, which is in his brain, in his brainstem. And I don't remember anything after that. It was completely blank moment. And Misha just, she was extremely devastated, shocked, and she screamed, and she started crying, and she left the room. And I remember asking the doctor, how bad is this? And she said, there is no cure. There is nothing,
So,
And
you refer to this as DIPG. What does DIPG stand for?
so, Misha, do you want to explain that? Or
Yeah, DIPG is diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma. Of course, these 4 letters did not mean anything to us before Neev was diagnosed. But what it is, it's basically a brain tumor in the pons, in the brain stem, which basically the brain stem connects your brain with the rest of your body. It's like the highway that connects all the signals that pass for your motor functions, for your respiration, for eating, for like all of those functions are controlled by the brain stem. So it's
is the brain stem in the neck? Is it in the neck?
Yes, in the back of your neck.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's such a and the way it's called diffuse, because if you think of it like jelly-like, so if you put sand in jelly, you can't separate the sand out.
Right.
So that's how the tumor is. So that's why it's diffuse. So it's inoperable because of it. And the reason where they don't do any kind of resurrection is because all the important nerves are there, because it controls every other function in your body. So the only treatment that is available since the 1940s is radiation. Since the radiation was discovered, that is the very first and only standard of care that is still given to kids that have diagnosed with DIPG.
So let me ask you, when you have a tumor like this, DIPG, is it always positioned in the neck, or is it found in other parts of the body, or is it just here?
So it's only in your brainstem. It's not neck. It's still your brain. It's just located inside of your head, because the neck tumors are a little different, but this is like inside. And because the reason why it's called DIPG, and it's upon diagnosis, is a grade 4 by the WHO standard. So grade 4 is the most deadliest kind of brain tumors that you can have. And there are some cases where it's called as DMG, so diffuse midline glioma. Midline is the location between the thalamus and the pons. So that entire region. So DIPG is a subset of DMGs.
So when they told you it's inoperable, did they give you any prognosis at the time, or did they just, what did they say?
So for me, like as Sandeep said, that when I heard that, like I just heard brain tumor and I didn't hear anything else. And at that instant, I just wanted to be with Neev. So I just left the room, because I'd left Neev with a social worker. And of course, this has never happened, right? We've never received a diagnosis where they have to take you away from your child into another room. And it was strange, because we were walking, they introduced us to a hematologist, the oncologist. And I'm like, it just didn't click. I'm like, okay, it must be something. And I just wanted to be with Neev, right? And I was just trying to be there. And then since when he was in the MRI, I was constantly praying. And after that, it was just intense Googling. And once the very first time I did the Google about DIPG, and it just said 6 to 9 months, it was devastating. That's the prognosis.
I can't even imagine what you both went through. So what was the next step? What happened then, Sandeep?
So just going back a little bit, because what she talked about DIPG, to me, she comes from a science background. I don't, and just like any other parent out there, I was struggling with the nomenclature. So the way I understood is diffuse, meaning that, as she said, it's jelly-like, but intrinsic, that is inside the brain. It's not on the outside. Pontine is the region of the brain, pons, and glioma is the tumor. So that's how I understood it. And when I realized the location and why it's inoperable, the reason being that solid tumors you can remove by surgery. The jelly tumors you don't. And the second thing that she mentioned, stage 4, so grade 4. So in regular cancers, you have stages 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 being, this cancer is widely spread.
Right.
In brain tumors, you have grades. So grade 1 will probably grow in 20 years. Grade 4, it will grow overnight. It will grow in 3 weeks, in 3 months, 6 months. So and because there is so little information on the tumor, and there are 400 or 500 patients in a year in US, it's very understudied and also underfunded, and that's why there is no research and there are no answers. And so going from that, as Misha said, that she left the room, and I was left with the doctors, and I asked them how long. And they said, you don't want to know right now. You don't want to know what your options are. You don't want to discuss this right now. Just let it sink in before you go to the next steps.
Mm-hmm.
And a week later, Misha was still there in the hospital for a week, and I was staying either in the corridors, in the car, or sometimes I would come home. But in 3-4 days, I remember going upstairs and meeting with her. And this is the first time I saw her after 4 days. And as soon as I saw her, I started crying. But by then, she had become so strong in her will to fight that she held me by my shoulders and she said, look, we've been given a chance. Otherwise, the God would have taken him away immediately. So we are going to fight. So 23 hours of the day, we're going to fight. We're going to do everything. 1 hour of the day, you want to cry, you want to be sad, you want to pray, you want to do whatever. Do that in 1 hour. But 23 hours a day, we are going to fight and we are going to try hard. And that's where really it occurred to me that she has made up her mind and we are going to find all the options that are out there. So we started researching. I didn't really understand much of the research. She did. So obviously we took the decisions together, but she was mainly driving force and talking to the doctors and explaining, understanding the medical terms, as well as reading the actual research papers and trying to get a sense of which mutations can be targeted, which drugs in other therapies or other cancers that have been effective in those mutations, can we connect them? And just to give you an idea, when we are talking to the doctors, when you look at normal cancer, it's oncologists that you talk. Here you are talking to oncologists, but pediatric oncologist, then a neuro-oncologist who's just studying the brain, then pediatric neuro-oncologist. So that's the level. And she's going up to those people and she's telling them that here are some other treatments and other medicines that could be useful. And for them, for a doctor, it never happens that you take that from a patient's mom, right? So they were not taking her seriously. And soon enough, because of her background and the kind of reading that she was doing every single night, She wouldn't sleep the whole night. She would be reading, and then the whole day she's with me, and I would be with him too, and we are running for all these appointments. But it started unfolding really quickly that our options are very limited, and whatever you do, the decision is on you. The doctors can only tell you that here are 1,000 ways you can go, and if you go this way, here is what will happen. Here are the challenges, and here is what we know so far, which is very little anyway. And they leave you at that, because they don't want the burden of taking decision for you.
Right.
Now, that's when I started realizing the definition of strength. It's not how much you cry. It's not how much you can withstand the pain. There is a lot of tremendously complex information that's coming your way that you have to analyze, process, and make a decision. Whether the decision is right or wrong, that is secondary, but make a decision. And I was not there. I was there physically, but I was not there mentally to make those decisions. And Misha's strength came out there as a mom, and she was making all these decisions and reading and fighting. So it was only because of her that we could try all the various treatments that we did. And I'll let you.
So let me ask you, as this progressed, is this, first of all, going back, is this only affecting children, or does it affect adults?
It affects children and young adults. There have
Okay.
been cases for older adults too, but it's not the norm.
Okay.
So normally kids between 5 to 10 are the most, priority age groups that get them, but there are a few groups of 21 and 25, but the outcomes are also different. So the adults that get them, their prognosis, the mutations that they have are not that aggressive. Okay. Whereas the kids that have the mutations are very aggressive, and it's very fast growing because the brain is also growing. So there's been a lot of new studies that shows that there's a crosstalk as to how the tumor hijacks the healthy cells and grows faster in a developing brain compared to an adult where the brain is fully developed. And
then did in this time period, from the time Neev got this to the time he passed, is it a painful tumor? I mean, does the child suffer?
So it's not technically painful. So the kids are cognitively intact, right? So it does not affect their thinking ability, their memory. It does not, but it strips away one function at a time. So to explain to a 4-year-old that when he went to sleep, he was walking, talking, and eating. And when he gets up the next day, all he could do is blink his eyes. That's a very traumatic experience, whereas he can process everything. If I talk to him, he will blink. It's not that he's comatose or any of those things. Right. And some kids do experience some level of pain depending on whether, so because think about it, it's in your pons with all the different nerves there. So the position of the tumors, for Neev, it was his eyes. But some kids would have a swallowing difficulty, or some kids would have severe headaches. It's just where within the pons where the tumor is located makes a very big difference on symptoms. So it's not even a set of symptoms that, I could go to a next mom and say, be careful, watch out for this. This is because this is what needs that. It just varies. It's very different all across the kids.
So how, from the time he was diagnosed to the time he passed, how many months was that?
15 months.
15 months. And did you know right from the beginning that he was not going to make it? Or did you, I mean, we all live with some kind of a hope, but having, coming from a science background and you were reading up so much about it, what was your plan of action for the 15 months? What were you trying to do, knowing that this was inoperable?
So in my head, I wasn't giving up. I wasn't ready to give up. And I believed in a lot of manifestation. So if I have positive thoughts, I would manifest that to my kid. So I wanted to go with that approach, till the very last day. I had a lot of hopes. I was, there's a lot of factors that play into this, but I just had a lot of hope, and I was trying to do everything there is that I could possibly do.
I mean, I can't even imagine what those 15 months was like. I know that I was reading up, and we were all connected on the Pleasanton, one of the groups on Pleasanton, and that's how I learned about your family and what was going on. So I know this has taken you to another level. I mean, Neev has gone to the Angels and you did everything, but many parents would probably just be sitting and grieving and saying, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? You both have taken a very different step, having lost such a young child. You've gone ahead and you've decided to start a nonprofit, or you're involved in a nonprofit. So I want to go to that before I come back again to Neev. I want to go to what have you undertaken? You both have, gone on this mission. And tell us a little bit about this mission.
So I can talk about it. So last year, after Neev was gone, about 6 or 7 months, I had pretty much given up on my all activities. I wasn't going out, I wasn't meeting anyone, and Misha was in the same boat. But one thing that drove her was she was still involved in reading about the research that was going on. She was attending conferences online. And there was this conference coming up in DC, Washington, DC, and she wanted to go. She didn't want to travel alone. So she asked me if I could go and someone else would watch our other kid, Ryan. So I went, and during the conference, the 2 days, it was all technical, so I didn't really understand much. But the second day, towards the evening, there was this a festival of cancer kids. It's called Cure Fest, that happens every year, and September being the childhood cancer month. And there was this kid who came up on stage. She's 5 years old, or at the time she was 5, and diagnosed with leukemia. And this little child comes and she sang a song. I still remember the words. It was, "This is my fight. It's my fight song." And she put in so much passion and the emotions in it, and then she spoke a little bit about her tumor. And by then I had given up on the world, as I said. And when Misha told me to start a nonprofit, my response was that the whole sky is torn apart. How many patches are you going to put? And it was a very crude way of saying that I'm not going to do anything. And then on the way back from DC, the whole time I was thinking about that little girl. And it occurred to me that if a 5-year-old child with cancer can go on stage and tell us that she's still fighting, and agreed that I have lost my son, but I'm still here and I have skills, I have abilities. So why not fight for the kids like her? And it also takes me back to a memory of Neev, where when he was diagnosed, after the diagnosis, he attended school only for 2 weeks. And the first time there was this show and tell. And all the kids in the class this was on Zoom because it was still COVID. And right. All the kids were showing their favorite toys, whether it was an Iron Man or Spider-Man. And I remember Neev going in the class and showing a necklace, and it was the beads. So every time you go for a doctor's appointment, or you go for X-ray or scan, or you get injection, it's all those moments when they give you a bead. And he had, at the time, he had 27, 28 beads, and he showed it to them, and nobody knew, not even teacher, what it meant. And I knew as a father that what he has gone through, he'd gone through months of radiation and brain scans and whatnot, and here is 5-year-old showing that on screen, and I couldn't believe it. And when I think about that now, that's actually his fighting strength. He fought back. He was saying that, look, you guys are doing great, but this is what I have.
What I'm doing, yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't. He could have easily chosen another toy, but he didn't. and I didn't force him. So when I thought about both of these things together, we decided to start a nonprofit. We quickly put the papers together, and the mission is very simple and straightforward. It's basically three areas that we work in. One is to support the research, because that is the most important. That's how we are going to find the cure. That's how we are going to make sure that there is no other Neev, right? The second one is to support the families. So the families that are currently in fight, they do not have time. So how can we make sure that their life is easy? And this is part of, where you mentioned Pleasanton community. Community in Pleasanton, in California, across US, a lot of people came to support us in our hard times, whether it was arranging meals or giving us $100 gift card for gas. And as a father, I wanted to provide it for everything, and I did. But at some point, some parents told me that it's okay to accept help because you don't have time for cooking and cleaning and whatnot. You want to focus on your kid, and I accepted that. So now the family support part of our foundation is to give back to those families that are in fight right now. And the third one is advocacy, talking more about the disease and what can cause it, and certainly the efforts in Washington D.C. to talk to lawmakers, to talk to policymakers, and bring more funding. Because no matter how many organizations like mine exist, we cannot have deep pockets like the government does.
Right.
And it will be sustainable. When we are gone, this effort will stop.
Right.
But if you work on bills and laws, then it will continue. So the organization is called Neev Ronil Foundation, and we focus on these three areas predominantly.
And then I believe you're doing the event with another organization as well, right? Brave Ronil?
Yes.
So is that another child that's also gone through something similar?
So Ronil, yes, Ronil is a child. We met his parents, actually his mom, Manisha. She helped me a lot during our fight with Neev. So I would talk to her every week, every couple of weeks, and that was kind of my support system, where I could go for ask her questions. And Ronil, he was diagnosed in, I think, 2016 and or 2015, I believe, and then he passed away in 2018, and he was 14 at the time. And when we came back, what you started, the talk with, a lot of parents don't come back, and they don't want to do anything again, that has to do with cancer. But Manisha was helping me, and we sort of met at her place, and we talked about what we are doing and why. And they loved the idea, and they said, "Can we join your efforts?" And I was like, "Sure." And that's how Neev Kolte and Brave Ronil Foundations, came together. So two families, they live right here in Bay Area in Fremont.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but we are putting our heads together and trying to fight this battle, and hoping that one day we can find a cure.
So my question, Misha, is you have an event coming up, right, on December 3rd with this organization. Tell us a little bit about the event. What should people expect?
So this event, you say, so our foundation is with two kids, Neev and Ronil. We are putting this event together with another foundation who has been doing this fundraising gala for 5 years. This is their 6th year. Their son name was Mithil. Again, this is San Jose. So you can see it's not that rare. Only within this Bay Area, there are many families, especially just these 3 Indian families that connected over the disease that their son had. So again, Mithil was a little older than Neev, around Ronnie's age. So they've been doing this consistently. So we just kind of tag team to see how it's done. We've never put a big event like this. What you expect is a formal sit down course meal dinner with live, not live auction, sorry, with silent auction. And we have raffles and live music. And the keynote speaker is the Neev's, in fact, Neev Ronil and Mithil's treating neuro-oncologist, who is from UCSF, and she is a world-leading doctor in DIPG.
I would just like to mention her name, Sabine Mueller, Dr. Sabine Mueller.
Wonderful. Okay, she's going to come in and probably talk and educate the audience on this. So you mentioned the 3 Indian kids just right here. I'm just curious to know, has it been traced that this is specific to certain ethnicities, or is it no? Okay.
No.
Is this genetic? Is DIPG?
So nobody knows yet what the cause is, because they've not identified an agent like an environmental factor that can cause these mutations. There is speculation that it happens in utero, so when the mother is pregnant, but they've not done any kind of studies. So there have been cases where the parent has twins and only one gets DIPG, even if they're identical. So even their genetics is identical. It's not hereditary per se.
Right.
So they don't understand the factors yet. But the twin studies kind of give an important perspective on, the history of this disease or the evolution.
And generally, the one question that all people have for any nonprofit always and for fundraisers is, how are the funds going to be used?
So the funds are going to be used primarily in research right now and family support, because advocacy, we just do it on our own. So for research, so far, the official organization was established in July of this year. That's when we got a 5013 status. But since Neev has passed, we have supported one clinical trial based out of Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. It's a trial, it's an imaging trial because it's brain, so you have to do a lot of MRI imaging.
Right.
But it's an imaging trial to see that if the tumor cells are active or not active. And it's a trial. You would think that this is something that would already be in practice, but it is not, because they just they can see yes or no. They can't tell you if it's growing or not growing. So this is an innovative clinical trial that we thought that would help patient identify, because this disease is so fast in progression. If it's not working, you want to change your treatment. You don't want to wait for 4 weeks of your MRI to kind of say that, yes, this treatment's not working. So if you just do an MRI imaging, with this kind of technology rapidly, you'll know, yes, the cells are growing and this treatment is not working. Let's switch tracks. Let's find another modality to target this tumor. That was one of the research that we have funded. In fact, we are also thinking, based off this gala, we also want to support another project that comes out of Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, is where they are they're using artificial intelligence to read all of these MRIs and form a model or a learned model. So that right now what happens, and I can tell you in Neev's case, right? Because we were in Bay Area, you are close to 2 centers of excellence. One is UCSF and one is Stanford, and both are phenomenal places. So we used to send Neev's MRI results to both UCSF and Stanford. And of course, the doctors knew about each other. Our doctors knew everything. And both the doctors, who are phenomenal, could not agree on reading the same MRI. It was different as night and day. One was saying that Neev was in progression, that means the tumor is growing, while as the other doctor was saying that the tumor is stable, it's not growing. That is how both the doctors read the same MRI, how differently. So this artificial model takes out the human component of it, and it's going to just quickly look at that, fit it to that, and then tell you, is the tumor growing? Is it not growing? So it's removing, human interference from that. And I think it's, so we supported the first part of this project. Now we also want to support the next part of this.
So coming up, the event is on December the 3rd, 2023, here in Foster City, I believe, correct?
Yes. Crown Plaza, Foster City.
And where can people get tickets for the event?
So those are available on our website. The website is www.neevronil.org. That's NEEVRONIL.org. And the registration is there, and also it's one thing I would like to highlight is for the treatments and all the clinical trials that are going on in DIPG, 99% of the funding comes from family foundation like ours. 1% comes from government. That's how sad and bad it is. So it's very important that we can support the research, and that's where we need community support,
Right.
to kind of support us. And so if people can come to the event, that would be wonderful. If you cannot make it to the event, I would still encourage to go on the website, read about the stories that we have, the information that about the projects that we are going to support, and you can donate. So, and if you are working for a corporation that actually matches the donations, then you can, since we are tax exempt, you can actually use that receipt for tax exemption purposes. You can upload it to a platform like Benevity within your organization and get the matching. And this being November, with Thanksgiving coming up, Giving Tuesday, most organizations do double
Right.
up, so that will help in a big way.
So before we wrap up, who would like to share a very special memory about Neev? I'm sure you have lots and lots of memories of him, but something very special.
Misha,
Maybe each one. Mommy can give one and Dad can give one.
So I can share one, and I think it just shows how vibrant and full of life and mischievous Neev was. This is the time when I have to drop both Ryan and Neev to school in the morning, Neev to daycare and Ryan to school. And it was just like, I'm like, get your water bottles, get your get your backpacks, get your lunch boxes, let's go, let's go. And then Neev is like just standing by the door, and he's just looking at me, and he's like, I'm not an octopus, Mama. Like saying, I only have two hands. I can only do so much. But like coming, and he was three years old at that time. So that's just showing what a wonderful, spirited personality he had.
Super cute. Yeah. Dad?
I mean, there are so many memories. It's difficult to choose, but one incident that comes to mind is he was he had started losing his abilities, and it was he was recognizing that. And as Misha said, the kids are cognitively very much there, and we were in UCSF, and he was wheelchair bound at the time, and he was impacted severely. So within 6 hours, he had lost all his body functions, and from there, we worked really hard, and he was able to sit in a wheelchair now. So earlier he used to just slump down, and I remember getting him out of the room after 6 weeks. They allowed us outside the room, and I was in UCSF Children's Hospital, and I was walking on the floor with him in the wheelchair, and we look at the bay, and there is a kayak that's crossing the bay. And I pointed to that, and I was like, do you remember? And yeah, what I was trying to get him to was, we used to go kayaking on Father's Day and on my birthday. That was my thing with the kids. And he said he remembered, but he remembered something else. And now he's trying to tell me what it was. And now it's like a game of dumb charades where I'm trying to recognize what he's trying to say. And he could only say Myrit, and I couldn't really understand what does it mean. And I tried for 10 minutes, and he would just do this. I mean, even he couldn't even raise his hand, but he was like, how can you be so dumb? And I'm like, I'm sorry, man, I'm sorry. And we go inside the room. I was like, I give up. And then he pointed towards books, just with his one finger, and I get the books. And then he kept saying no, no, no. And then I got to a particular book. Then he made me read, and I had forgotten about the incident completely. And then I come to a particular story, and he just points to that, and he's like, this is what I was talking about. and it was a pirate. He had
Ah,
seen pirates, and that's what he was saying. And so that showed me that his cognitive abilities, his intelligence is still
right.
there, and it's basically the kids are trapped in their body and they don't understand what's happening with them. And as a parent, as a caregiver, it's extremely difficult to watch your kid wither away just like that,
Right.
and you cannot do anything. And but the the fact of the matter is that spirit existed throughout the journey, and he cracked so many jokes, fart jokes. He loved them, and he would always make us laugh, and he was so full of life, that I mean, I was amazed so many times that even if he's losing his abilities, how is he keeping his spirits up? And that gave me the energy to be there for him throughout the fight.
So in closing, the series is called You Could Be Next. And I put this together. I shared with you that I've gone through a very traumatic experience, and I was reaching out trying to figure out, who's had this and who can help me. And and that's when Google is sometimes not the best thing to look up. And so my reason for starting this series is I felt that when we share our stories, there's somebody out there who, many times we take life for granted and we think, nah, listen to the story, it's never going to happen to me. And then life hits you really hard. So, as parents, what would your message be out there in closing to parents who have had loss of a child, maybe to something different, and they just don't know how to cope and they just don't know what to do with themselves? You guys have taken this to another level completely. Most parents would not be doing this. What would be your message to parents about how they can find strength in or of accepting what has happened with this adversity that you both have gone through?
Misha, you want to go first?
No, why don't you go?
So my message is to both the parents who are in the fight right now, or who would eventually, if they come across any disease or anything like this with their loved ones. uh, um, the idea is that you have to keep your head strong, and discussed about the definition of strength. But two simple exercises help me a lot, and they will help most people out there. One is that, and it's psychological more than anything else. You have to be in that attitude of positiveness. So one of my friends suggested that I wear a wristband, just a rubber, and the idea is that you snap it every time you get a negative thought, and as you snap it, you basically tell your negative thought that I understand, I recognize you, but right now I don't have time for you. Can we make an appointment next week? So you're not brushing it under the rug, but you are delaying that. And the snapping of the rubber band is actually creating, pain, and it's distracting your brain. So there is time behind it. So it
Interesting.
works, and you have to try it
I need
every
to,
day.
I need to get a
And
rubber band right away.
yeah, and it's miraculous. That first day I snapped it, and he told me to count it, and I counted 251 times. I snapped it, and then as gradually we went through the journey with me, even though it was heartbreaking, this simple exercise actually helped me a lot. And also you get a lot of negative comments from doctors, from your family, from
Mhm.
your friends. A friend asked me, can I come to see Neev? And I was like, no, we are too busy. And he said, just one last time. Now those,
Yeah.
that hurt really bad, but I didn't yell at her, I didn't say anything. I just snapped, and I was like, okay, it's one negative comment. And I always compared it with the worst thing that I've heard in my life, which is your child has an inoperable disease.
Right.
When you compare it to something that's extremely negative, then all those worries become, they fade away,
Right.
that nothing matters compared to that, right? So that has helped me tremendously, and I would, tell everyone out there that you follow some trick like that, you will get through the hard times. And there's nothing hard than seeing your child go through this and eventually losing them. But at the same time, because you have to live the life and you have to, I wouldn't use the word move on, but we learn to live with the pain. And these are the things that I still practice daily in my life, and try to stay positive and keep the fight for the kids who are out there.
Misha?
For me, it was simply the only way I could get out of bed is to channel my grief into doing something that was meaningful and in a way that I could remember Neev. Sandeep and I are very two different people. We grieve very differently. So it's okay that you don't grieve like me or you don't grieve like the next person. Grieving is very private. So any parents that are listening to out there, any way of grieving is the right way. It's fine. I just needed strength, and the only way I could constantly think about Neev is to do what I'm doing right now in terms of advocacy and raising awareness and fundraising for DIPG.
Thank you so much. And for all those listening, as both Sandeep and Misha have mentioned, if you can't make it to the event, that's okay. It's a contribution, and your contribution is going to a good cause. And there's so many different diseases out there, disorders out there that nobody even has heard of. And it's not until you're impacted with it yourself that you realize how critical money is to be able to get treatment. And sometimes the treatment may not help you, but it may help and save another person's life. So be sure to, at the end of the show, to look at the flyer of the event, and I'll be posting the website as well, and get your tickets. If you can't be there, contribute money, and also reach out to Sandeep and Misha if you have gone through a similar experience. You want to get some ideas from them how you can move on, or what's going on in your life or with your child or anything. I know they've been very gracious to come on the show, and I know Sandeep chats with me a lot, and he's been wonderful, and I'm sure he'll be as kind to you as he has been on the show. So thank you so much, and I can't thank you both enough for coming in and sharing something that's just so private and so personal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rennu. Appreciate all your help.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, really.